The FBI and the major media are being silent on an emerging truth, an important truth coming out of the investigation of the Las Vegas bombing, where allegedly Matt Levelsberger, former Special Forces trooper, allegedly blew up a bomb in front of the Trump hotel in Las Vegas. Now, as we've been telling you on this channel, there's a lot of things that are standing out and a lot of things that are coming into view now that we didn't have before. And what I want to point out to you this morning is something that should concern us all. We're being told one story, and you see that there's a common story between what the officials are saying and what the major media is saying, even in light of the fact that we brought to you yesterday some information that showed conclusively that what the FBI has been telling us is absolutely untrue. It's unequivocal. It is black and white. You're going to see that again here in a minute. But I wanted to point out something to you today as to why I'm concerned, and you need to be concerned as well. And I recommend that you share this to everybody you know. And I mean, literally everybody you know, to say, hey, you see what the public is saying. You see what the Washington Post, New York Times, CBS News, all those folks are saying. And no one is talking about some of these huge, huge holes in this problem. The major media used to be something designed to, I think they call it the fourth establishment. You had the three branches of government, and you had the fourth establishment, the media. It's going to keep everybody honest. It's going to say, hey, we're going to be looking at the truth, and we're going to expose things that are wrong. And if you say something that doesn't match up with the facts, we're going to expose that. That's not the case anymore. And that is a real concern here. The issues at stake right now are big enough. But when you see, I hesitate to go so far as to say collusion, because it could also just be laziness. That instead of reporting what the truth is, they just say, well, here's what the FBI said. Here's what the local police official said. This is, they're not doing their job. What's supposed to be, just say, all right, here's what they said. But so when I'm going to show you the piece that we did yesterday and highlighted it once again in exposition to what the major media is saying, you'll see that there is a major, major problem here. Levelsberger went from Colorado Springs, Colorado to Las Vegas, rented a Cybertruck, one of Elon Musk's vehicles, drove it all the way to Las Vegas, and then went in front of the hotel in Trump and blew the thing up. That's what we're being told. And then they were specifically being told that the vehicle was burned beyond recognition. The body was burned beyond recognition. And you see there that just the ashes practically, and all the things that were of metal that were still inside there. But they were told that despite the fact that the body was burned beyond recognition, but his ID cards were only slightly burned in one case, and his passport really just hardly has any damage at all. So really interesting that they can positively identify that there was ID cards in there when his body wasn't. But who knows? Maybe that's possible because there were some fabric pieces that were left in there that were not destroyed. It seems unlikely, but okay. Let's ask that question, though, because that seems a little suspicious. CBS, on the other hand, said that the investigation was exposed that the Las Vegas driver, and this is so crucial, this is absolutely vital, that he shot himself before the blast. What the official said was his body's burned beyond recognition, McCahill said. Investigators said Levelsberger's military ID, passport, and credit cards were found in the vehicle, along with several firearms. Further complicating the identification of this individual, we also discovered through the coroner's office that the individual had sustained a gunshot wound to the head prior to the detonation of the vehicle, the sheriff continued. McHill said that the handguns discovered inside the vehicle after it exploded was found at the driver's feet. So that's really important. And in fact, then they also provided, and here's that pistol. It's a Desert Eagle. It's either a 44 or a 50 caliber weapon. It's a massive one. And believe me, as the video is going to show that I'm going to put in from yesterday, you'll see what that weapon does when it hits various objects. But that's really important because they're saying conclusively, authoritatively, that a coroner has concluded that he shot himself in the head with that weapon, which would obliterate anything that it hit. I mean, it wouldn't be like, there's like you see on TV, like, there's a hole in the head or something like that. the kinetic energy in this round would literally vaporize whatever it hit, and it would be incredibly evident. If you had a video on the vehicle and that this happened before the explosion, which they say it did, then you would see what's called a report. You would see the muzzle blast, you would see a flash of light, and with this particular weapon, no matter how strong the Cybertruck is, that bullet would absolutely have gone out the roof or anywhere else, depending on what angle it was fired at. That's what you would expect to see if only there was some video. Turns out that there was. And listen, I'm going to show you a piece of yesterday's show, the most crucial part where it discusses in detail exactly what happened there and what we have seen. So you would expect, if the media was doing its job, that there would be an investigation, that people would be putting that microphone back in the face of the FBI spokesman, back in the face of the local police people, and saying, hey, you said the guy got shot in the head, but here's this video which absolutely conclusively, and let me at least throw that one picture up here. You can see here on this one image here, you can see the driver unequivocally, clear as a bell. You can see his ear, you can see his hairline, you can see his face, his nose, his shoulder. You can see the driver's, the steering wheel, and you can see that the explosion began in the front seat. So those are all things that you can see black and white there. Why has no one in the media covered this? Why has no one said that? That video's been out there for days. But what have the media been saying? Well, now this is from the 3rd of January. The New York Times is saying, oh, well, you know, he had PTSD and he had fears of collapse of the government and several other kinds of things. Then the Washington Post is saying, well, you know, he had mental problems. Those are the things that the New York Times and the Washington Post are talking about, which of course is being repeated all other places. Now, that was on the 3rd of January. Now, what I just showed you is vehicles of that vehicle explosion we put out yesterday. And I assure you that people are really, really interested in this. For example, we just had I put out that video along with those shots there yesterday, and you see it went viral for us. We had 1.2 million earlier today, and a few minutes ago I looked and it was 1.4 million. I mean, it just keeps flying through the roof because people want to know what's going on. Well, so in light of that, what do you think that the New York Times and the Washington Post are talking about? Well, let's take a look. So this is live right now. This is the New York Times, Washington Post right now. And so I'm just going to go in. Do you see anything at all, even an update on what's going on with this? I went through this just a few minutes ago, and I don't see anything. I see all kind of daylight savings time in Brazil. That's important. A lot of Americans want to know about that. Or, you know, how 5 lessons on pro-organizers. You know, those are the things that we're talking about here. Nothing else at all on that. And then let's see, what about the New York Times? New York Times, same situation. They're talking about everything else in the world, talking about getting ready for the January 6th anniversary tomorrow, the possible big snowstorm that's heading this direction, all kinds of things. Nothing on that at all. And listen, folks, that's a big deal. That is a big deal, because what that's telling you is that the media isn't care. That is when you have the FBI looking you right in the face and telling you the man shot himself in the head, and then here is video evidence that nobody was shot in the head, whoever that driver is, and you can't conclusively say it was Livelsberger, but it's somebody, and it generally looks like him. It's a white guy, he's got dark hair. All that stuff is sitting there in plain evidence sight. So the video did capture it. There's no report of a weapon that fired before that stuff. Obviously, the head is still on there. He's still sitting erect and upright. Even if some people say, oh, well, maybe he shot himself on the other side of the head. But you see, if that happened, you're not going to stay upright. And that's exactly what we see in there. At the very least, everyone should be asking, what is going on here? What is the truth? What's actually happening? Can you reconcile these two things? Now, all I can do is show video that's out here. I don't have forensics evidence. I don't have access to anything. So all we can do is ask really hard questions. And that is what we're doing. And that is what you should be doing. You should send this to your members of Congress, to your local law enforcement, to your local members of the governor, the state, whatever. Anybody that you have, say, hey, answer these questions. What is going on here? These things must be reconciled. We cannot allow such a gross contradiction in what is being said and what evidence provides without at least asking the hard questions. That's what you should do. Now, in case you hadn't seen it, I'm going to now play a portion of yesterday's show that shows exactly what we're talking about. This part, however, is not questionable. Now, this is the explosion. If you can back that up. Okay, here's the explosion from this certain angle. This is one of the most important piece of evidences that's out there. This is from the side, and you can see this is from the driver's side. Most of these others you've seen from various different angles. Now, if you look very close, freeze that right there. Gary, freeze that right at that point. Just about there, freeze. Now, if from this video here, you can see this is the driver's side. Now, if you look carefully into the window, you can see where the driver's head is. You can see his hair, his face, his shoulders, the back of the chair, all that stuff you can see. Now, I have taken some screenshots out of this, and let me show you a series of them. Gary, if you can put that first one up there. This is the first image I'm going to show you here is pulled off that video, and it's right before the explosion happens. And so if you look carefully in there, and now go to the second one there, you can see clearly that there's his head. His shoulder is right there where that arrow is pointing, and then you can see kind of perpendicular the seat back. So this shows a person normally sitting in a vehicle from the angle you would expect. Then go to the next picture. Now, this is the instant of the explosion. This is where things start to go sideways. In this picture right here, you can see that the explosion starts in the driver's seat. So this must have initiated right underneath him. It didn't initiate in the back where allegedly there was some gas canisters and lots of fireworks, etc. It initiated right there in the front seat. So let's take a look there and now go to the next image here. Let me show you what you can see very clearly now. You can definitely see his face is illuminated very clear. You can see his ear there right at the end of that arrow, his face, his nose, his hairline. You can see all that. You can see the steering wheel, obviously very well illuminated in that. The next clip there, Gary, if you can go to the next one. Yeah. So you can see that is clear as can be. It's like with this light going on. This is right before, as the explosion happens. Do you see any evidence that this person had already been killed, had already been dead? If he had shot himself with the weapon that they claim was in the front seat, there would be no head. I'm sorry to be graphic, but there would be no head on the body. It would have been vaporized. You would have seen exiting the vehicle, the bullet. It would have come out there. It's impossible with that much power. It could have been contained within the vehicle. It would have penetrated the vehicle and gone out after it went through his head. But you see none of that here. And then the next video, I think there's one more, isn't there, Gary? Or is that the last one? That may be the last one, yeah. Because then you have this huge explosion. But that's what would have happened. But now then here we have this image, and Gary, go back to the last image that we had on there. This proves 100% clearly that this person was not dead before the explosion. That because even if it was a regular weapon and he just killed himself, then obviously he would have been slumped forward. His head would have been on the wheel. You can't stay upright after you've shot yourself. It's physically impossible. So now then that leaves us with, what has happened now? What's going to go on? What's going to the result of this point? Because if what we're being told over and over is he shot himself, and yet here very clearly he didn't, then what are we to make of what else we're being told? Now, another one here, this comment also from an FBI when they're talking about the nature of the explosion itself. Watch this.
I'll tell you, it does appear that it was, I just want to be careful with my language here, but the level of sophistication is not what we would expect from an individual with this type of military experience. That most of the materials inside that Tesla were fuel to help fuel a greater explosion. But it's too early to answer any question as if there was sophisticated connectivity to those components to make it ignite in the way that it did.
So you see there that here's an explosive expert saying, it just seems a little odd that this guy who was a 19-year Special Forces veteran, who had been through multiple Afghan deployments and apparently several other operational deployments elsewhere, knew explosives inside and out, was really good at his craft, would not even know how to put together an effective vehicle-borne explosive device. Why would that be? Why would he not be able to do that? And then like all these things in the back, this fireworks and all this other kind of stuff, they weren't even connected. But then allegedly, what these folks are expecting you to believe is that even though it was really unsophisticated, apparently he must have had a really sophisticated triggering mechanism so that he could shoot himself and have set the timer off so that it would go off after he was dead. And then that's another thing you got to look at that. Going back to that video or that picture there, if you have set an explosive device in the front seat of your vehicle, that one right there, so that's where it is. Now, tell me, what possible reason would you have to say, hey, before this bomb goes off in my lap, I'm going to shoot myself first? There's no reason to do that. There's no need to do that. You know you're going to be evaporated when that bomb goes off. So it seems kind of odd that you would, quote, shoot yourself first and then the bomb goes off. So you see, none of this stuff matches up with this guy. He says he's trying to get to Mexico. He says he has some explosive information he wants to get into the media. Then all of a sudden he kills himself and allegedly shoots himself and blows himself up inside of a vehicle that he knows good and well is very powerfully put together so that if you have an explosive device, that most of it is going to be contained within that vehicle. You may, I think there's some famous footage out there. I think it was Elon Musk himself when he announced this thing, threw like an iron ball or something like that at the glass window. It was supposed to have bounced off. It cracked, but it, showed it how strong this vehicle was. And it's something that can really contain a lot of explosive power. So if you know a lot about making explosives, if you know about how to make a vehicle bomb, and then you're going to use a small amount of explosive, which will mostly be contained because allegedly, according to the official story here, is that he didn't want to commit terrorism. He didn't want to kill anybody. He just wanted to make a message. Well, obviously, you could have done that anywhere. And why go to the Trump hotel? I mean, he's a Trump supporter. By all accounts, this guy was positive to Trump support. So if you just want notoriety, why would you drive from Colorado all the way to Las Vegas to get in front of this hotel? I mean, you just say none of this stuff makes any sense at all. And yet that's what we're asking for. But you look at all of the media. The media today, are they saying anything about whatever allegedly happened in 2019? Are they talking about anything about these drones? Are we doing any more investigations into them? They're not talking about any of that stuff. They're just saying he definitely committed suicide. He definitely had emotional issues, and trust us on this. We got this stuff off his phone, even though he didn't send it to anyone else or talk to anyone else in his sphere. But he left this neutral note in a place that shouldn't have even been able to be discovered. So what's wrong with that story? You see what I'm saying here? Listen, our government has done so many things that has caused a lot of doubt and a lot of questions about things, and we don't know. There's too many things, I'm sorry, that we do know that turned out to be not true later on. So there's been poll after poll for many years now that shows that America's trust in government keeps going down, down, down. And some of these things are the reason why.